Today's an awesome chat for those fascinated by sustainable activewear and the science behind it. Andrew from Active Apostle delves into why regenerated nylon is sustainable and how it's made. Plus, we also get some food for thought as to why bigger players are not embracing sustainable activewear. But here's a clue: it's not the obvious economic reason we all think it is. Enjoy the pod. So tell us a bit about Andrew and Active Apostle.
Um, yeah, so my journey started really in corporate. So I was, working for a big tech firm, and my career has generally been in corporate or working with startups in the tech sphere.
Yep.
And I guess over time, I just became more conscious of my own spending habits, buying habits, like where I would actually spend my money, and realize that, a lot of what we buy, and this isn't just about fashion, it's about electronics, it's about
Yep.
food. I feel a lot of it isn't ethically produced.
Okay.
Whether it's the food that we eat, or whether it's the new iPhone that we buy, and things like that. So I started going down this journey of discovery and looking into it, and I started realizing that the earth is often being exploited in terms of the resources it needs to produce the goods and the goods that we buy,
Yep.
as well as the people that are making certain things. They're
Okay.
also being exploited. So, obviously that doesn't sit well with me, as I'm sure it doesn't sit well with you and
Yeah.
other people. But I just decided, well, listen, I want to start a company that doesn't do those things. It's respectful of the earth, the planet that we live on, as well as the people that actually make the items. So that's really what, I guess, the real impetus behind Active Apostle. And,
Yep.
it being active, where I was always passionate about, health and fitness, and realized there were a lot of activewear brands that weren't doing the right thing in terms of where they had their clothes made and the type of material that is being used to actually make the clothes. I thought, well, listen, I can do something better.
Yep.
So started this brand, Active Apostle, and the name is based on really having that outlook where I'm hoping to inspire and empower a generation of apostles to go out there and spread that message of sustainability, and doing the right thing, doing what is ethical. So when you think about an apostle, it doesn't necessarily have to have a religious connotation to it. An
Yeah.
apostle is simply a messenger, somebody that
Okay.
goes out there with a message that is so amazing that they want to spread it to other people. And that's precisely what I'm trying to do with Active Apostle, in that, people that wear the clothes and are passionate about the brand go out there and spread that message of living an active and healthy lifestyle, as well as being sustainable. So that's kind of how it all came into being.
Yeah, awesome. And I think that's with a lot of great businesses. It comes from founders scratching their own itch. And it definitely sounds like for you, it's I guess, like a continuation of your journey to becoming a more sort of conscious consumer in a variety of ways. And like you said, being passionate about your health and fitness, I think a sustainable activewear label seems to be the perfect amalgamation. And
Yeah.
just sort of moving forward into Active Apostle now, one of the things I love about the brand is that you guys use Econo. And are you able to just go into just a bit more detail about what Econo is and why it's so sustainable, and I guess why consumers should keep an eye out for brands who are using Econo?
Right. Okay. Well, let me tell you firstly, Jordan, it's
Yep.
actually pronounced ECONYL.
Okay, now, I've
Yeah.
had this conversation with three different people, and I've heard it pronounced three different times. So,
And you know
so
what? I
Econil. Is that
yeah, it's
E?
ECONYL or
Econil. Okay.
ECONYL, depending on how you say echo.
Yeah. Okay.
But listen, I said the same thing as you
Yep.
for ages. Like when I first met with the guys at Carbico, and they're like a sister
Yeah.
company to Aquafil that make ECONYL,
Yep.
kept saying Econol, Econol, Econol. And
Okay.
I didn't know if that's just because of the way we are in Australia and how we learn English and
Yeah.
how we kind of put syllables together. But
Okay.
I thought the same thing. I thought it was O'Connell for so long,
Yeah.
and only recently in the last couple of months where I understood it to be EcoNeil. Because all my interaction with the company has been in written form. It's been
Yeah.
email.
So you never pronounced the word.
We never had to pronounce the actual name of it, but then
Yep.
I realized later that it's Echo Neil. But
Awesome.
anyway,
Thanks
that
for clarifying that. No, it's a good consideration.
yeah, that aside, yes, it uses Echo Neil, so that is a trademark. Regenerated nylon of a company called Aquafil, an Italian company. They have a sister company called Carbico that actually makes fabric. And essentially, it is regenerated nylon. So it's taking waste products from various areas. It could be from factories, it could be from landfills. Um, it's also from the ocean. I'd say predominantly from the ocean through discarded fishing nets.
Yep.
And it's taking all of that material and it goes through this alchemy process, this regeneration process, which is their bread and butter, like Aquafil's bread and butter. That's their patented technology. It goes through that process to regenerate it into new virgin nylon that
Yep.
can then be spun into a yarn. So nylon, the way it's typically made, and I'm not a chemical engineer, so
Yeah.
I don't know the intricacies of it, but it's generally made from crude oil. So, oil being a fossil fuel, it goes through a chemical process to actually create nylon. So it comes from oil. But what Aquafil are doing here is that they're actually recreating new nylon from old nylon by
Yeah.
regenerating it. And then it's spun into a yarn, and then that yarn can be used for various different things. It can be used for activewear, swimwear, car interiors,
Okay.
carpet, various different things.
Yeah, awesome. And I was just going to quickly ask you there about some of the other materials I use because I know in the past when I do a few Instagram or Facebook posts, I love to say things like who knew recycled carpet and fishing nets could look so good. 'Cause I'm just always
Yes.
amazed how that can happen. And can you just list some of, off the top of your head on, you might not have them in front of you, but some of the other materials that they use um, to create, I've almost pronounced the word, ECONYL?
Yeah, EcoNeil.
ECONYL?
Yeah,
ECONYL, yeah. So,
it's predominantly carpet fluff
yeah,
uh, and the discarded fishing nets.
okay. They're the two main
They're
ones.
the two main ones. They
Yeah,
don't use plastic bottles
yeah.
like some other technologies that can
Like
actually
Reprieve.
transform. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Can
yeah,
transform plastic bottles into yarn. It's predominantly carpet fluff
yeah,
and um, the fishing nets. That's
yeah.
basically what makes it up.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I don't. There may be other textiles that use nylon that are also incorporated in that. But I believe it has to have that consistency of nylon in order to reproduce it into new virgin nylon. So they wouldn't be using plastic bottles because that would be a different kind of plastic
Yeah.
um, that would be needed um,
Okay.
to kind of
Yeah.
recreate the final product. So you wouldn't combine the plastic bottles with the nylon. Or I mean, you could, but then the end product wouldn't be a virgin nylon. It would be nylon plus something else.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so as long as it's nylon, it can be used for that regeneration process. But from my understanding, it's mainly carpet fluff and the fibers from that, as well as ghost fishing nets.
Okay, brilliant. Well, yeah, I appreciate that great insight. And you got the science lesson there, and you got a bit of the English lesson there with the pronunciation. So thanks for that, Andrew. And
We cover
sort of,
everything
sorry,
in
what was
this
that?
podcast. I said we cover everything in this
Yeah.
podcast.
Exactly right. Exactly right. 360-degree approach. In terms of sort of going to more of a macro sense now, why aren't other activewear brands embracing more sustainable materials? So we discussed there that it's not just ECONYL, or sorry, ECONYL, almost did it again, that, is a sustainable material. There's so many other great materials out there that are much more kinder to our planet. And I'm sure these other activewear brands, aren't in the dark about it. They know they exist. So
Mm.
why do you think, the industry as a whole, the majority of them aren't truly embracing sustainable activewear?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I know when I started Active Apostle, I probably did close to a year of research just on fabrics.
Okay.
Um, and what I can say is that there are more, like there are certain, fibers out there and in fabrics that are actually more sustainable than others.
Yeah.
Not all of them are really suitable for activewear, though. So, for example, hemp is a pretty sustainable fabric. Even, I mean, some would argue organic cotton is, although some would argue it's not because of the water resources involved in producing cotton. But bamboo, for example, all of these are natural fabrics
Yep.
that could be considered more sustainable than, let's just say, something that's been recycled but is still a plastic. So um, ECONYL is still a plastic. It's manufactured, it's synthetic, it's not natural in any way.
Okay.
Um, but the reason that big brands and even small brands don't embrace a lot of the natural fabrics for activewear, which could be considered more sustainable, as I said, is mainly because of performance. So if you think of hemp, great material, but if you were to wear a hemp, t-shirt when you're actually training, it would probably be very abrasive on the skin. It wouldn't feel good. It wouldn't stretch appropriately, when you want to lift weights and run and things like that. It may be somewhat
Okay.
breathable, but it's not best for performance.
Okay.
Similarly with bamboo, bamboo doesn't have that same stretch. So if you have a pure bamboo t-shirt,
Yep.
it may be good initially, but it won't have the durability required for activewear. It'll eventually lose its shape, and you're going to be throwing it away after 10 wears, which it wouldn't be considered sustainable, because then you're throwing something away, and we know you're never really throwing it away. It doesn't just disappear and go
Yeah.
somewhere. So
Yeah. Awesome.
you've got that
And
aspect of it. So
yeah.
bamboo itself, if it is made into activewear, it always has to be combined with some form of elastane, so that
Okay.
it really can be a good, act like a performance garment.
Okay. Interesting. And sorry to cut you off there, Andrew. I was going to ask because a lot of I guess, the qualms with fast fashion, maybe unethical activewear and unsustainable activewear, is that it's more so comes from an economic reason as the companies are willing to, engage in slave labor or
Mm,
abusive labor because they want to maximize their profit margins, or they want to use less sustainable materials because they're cheaper to acquire, cheaper to
mm.
manufacture and whatnot. But just to sort of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you believe that it is more so from a, like you said, a performance point of view as opposed to an economic point of view? Or do you think maybe
No,
it's a mixture of
I
both?
definitely don't. In
Yep.
fact, I was going to highlight the performance aspect first,
Yep.
but I agree with you 100%. I'd say it's predominantly driven for economic reasons, and that is
Okay.
because it's simply cheaper to
Yep.
produce garments made out of, polyester or nylon, because
Yeah.
that technical kind of process, it's just easier to do, it's cheaper to do, but it doesn't really take into consideration the, emissions from that process
Yeah.
of producing the actual nylon, whether
Okay.
it's from crude oil or something else. So 100%, it's cheaper to do that.
Yep.
You can do it
Okay.
relatively inexpensively, as companies have been doing for decades now.
Yep.
It is, of course, cheaper to produce offshore in countries like China, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, even some countries in Africa where wages are a lot cheaper. So I
Yeah.
definitely say what is predominantly driving it is economic reasons, like what you mentioned. But I
Yep.
also do want to say that the reason that there are probably organic fabrics that aren't used is because of performance. So
Yeah.
basically, the at the end of the day, I do feel that activewear needs to be made with the synthetic fabrics ultimately in order for performance. However, those synthetic fabrics can of course be recycled as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And I believe some of these companies are actually embracing these new technologies, and some of the recycled material. I know Adidas is, even companies that would consider themselves that we would consider as fast fashion brands like your
Yep.
H&Ms.
Yep.
They're all starting to look at some of this recycled material as well. But you also
Okay.
have to understand that these brands have been established for a long time. They've been established well before the slow fashion movement. So there are processes in place, and they built their business model on mass production, because that's the only way these fast fashion brands can work, is when
Yeah.
they mass produce. So it's based on the margin of every single item that they make, because they can make a t-shirt for like a few cents and charge $4 for it. That's actually quite a big margin, but it only works when you're buying in bulk, producing
Okay.
that in bulk, buying in bulk, and then marketing, so that you can sell in bulk as well.
Yeah. I
Well,
think that. Yeah. As I
yeah.
said, there's some fantastic insights. And the last thing I just want to quickly ask before we move on to the last few questions is it's sort of a hypothesis I just sort of thought of now hearing your expert insight, because I never really considered I guess the performance point of view. And do you feel as though maybe some of these sort of larger activewear brands hide behind the performance element that they can't do it with hemp or organic cotton, um, as a way to still continue the more human or the more the economic reasons to the real that is the real reason why? So, but I haven't phrased this too well. Long story short, what I say is, do they hide behind that, some of these materials aren't effective from a performance point of view, so they can continue doing things that are more economically beneficial? If that makes sense.
Um,
Do you
I
know, so they
don't.
hide behind that, say we can't do
Yeah.
that because that material doesn't allow us to be as functional?
No, I don't think they do. I mean,
Yep.
because then there's always the argument, well, why can't you use recycled nylon? Like,
Yep.
for example, the ECONYL that I use in my activewear label, that has all the performance qualities of a nylon that's actually made from crude oil. There's actually
Yep.
no difference. It just
Okay.
means that the nylon that I used
Yep.
is from a nylon that was initially used by crude oil. So in terms of performance, there's no real difference there. So I don't think companies like big brands are actually hiding
Yep.
behind some kind of performance benefit in order to
Yep.
continue exploiting the earth or its people,
Yeah.
economically. But
Okay.
that's it. I'm sure that they're still responsible for greenwashing and
Yeah.
doing various things that may try and um, I guess give us the perception that they are more ethical
Yeah.
than they truly are. I'm sure they're doing all of that, but I
Yeah.
don't want to say that they're hiding behind an argument of performance. At least I haven't seen that.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah, interesting. No, no, I appreciate you sort of sharing your insight there. It's always good to discuss these things. And so I've just got sort of two more unique questions to finish off. And the first one is, what can big sportswear brands like Nike and Lorna Jane learn from Active Apostle?
um,
Yeah, and then I'm going to ask you, what can you learn from them on a more conscious level? So it's sort of a double-pronged question, but yeah, that first part,
yeah.
what can they learn from you and Active Apostle?
Um, well, I guess learning from Active Apostle. I mean, I think I don't. Our approach is completely different, and I think if their approach, like for example a Nike, I don't know how much they want to kind of connect with their audience, or an Adidas, whereas that's one of the fundamental criteria of Active Apostle, really wanting to kind of understand who its audience is, connecting with them and inspiring them and empowering them, like I mentioned before.
Yeah,
Um, and I don't know if that is the intention of, some of those bigger brands like the Nike, maybe Lorna Jane, I don't know, but eventually you get to a point where you're so big that I don't know if that connection with the audience and wanting to inspire them is as fundamental to your business as actually making money. And I'm not here to kind of criticize that business strategy of just focusing on profits and um, you know trying to make as much money as possible. I'm not here to criticize them. If they've gotten to the stage where they are so big and they can produce activewear that people like, um, then good for them. All I can do is really encourage those bigger brands to be as ethical as possible in
yeah,
terms of the materials that they source
yeah,
and the people that actually make their clothes. So if they have been, using new man-made synthetic fibers for a long time, perhaps reducing the percentage of their active wear that's actually made from um, new synthetic fibers, um, and perhaps using more recycled material.
yeah,
And
yeah,
definitely in terms of the wages, I don't think it's ever acceptable to exploit your workers, not pay them fairly, and not even be um, in like have an understanding of who is actually making, like if you've got an offshore unit that's producing all your clothes, doing the due diligence and making sure that the factory that you're using is a legitimate factory. It has all the necessary certifications. It has a policy of paying its staff fairly. They're given benefits and annual leave, all those types of things, so that it is a happy place to work. I
yeah,
think there's never an excuse for exploiting people in that regard.
yeah,
I think there's a lot that they can learn in that respect from Active Apostle, because I mean, I visited our factory several times in Bali. I've been there, I've spoken to the workers, I've done a series on my Instagram
yeah,
where I've intentionally looked at different workers, the role that they do, whether it's, like in the actual garment production process, from, cutters to sewers to packers, people that work in admin in the factory, and just highlighting not only what their role is and how imperative it is to the whole interdependence of that manufacturing supply chain, but also in terms of who they are as people. Do they have kids? Are they married? Where do they live? What do they like? Do they have pets? And I think that aspect is really important for us. And that's why I kind of highlighted that. Understand it's really hard for the bigger brands to kind of do that. But just looking at those aspects, I think is really important.
Yeah, and I think that's some great feedback there, and there's so much to unpack, but we do have to work towards wrapping up. And I just want to quickly ask, what are some of the things that you can learn from these bigger labels on a conscious level? Like you said there, abusing workers, abusing the planet is never acceptable. There's never an excuse for it. But maybe from other, maybe broader business strategies point of view, like what are some cool things that you think you can pick apart from these successful labels and bring that towards Active Apostle?
I'd say I'm impressed with the way a lot of their marketing. I think that's pretty good. And sure, they've got big budgets. They've probably got big marketing teams that, can roll out really kind of creative social media campaigns and things like that. But I think there's a lot to learn from them in terms of their social media, how they're actually, collaborating with influencers, some of the actual digital assets that they have. So their ad units, their posts on Instagram, what they're saying, their aesthetic, that the whole aesthetic regarding their marketing. I think a lot of the big brands do that, pretty well.
Yeah, I agree.
To go to their Instagram page, I'm sure it would look really lovely. And like I said, they do have the financial resources to kind of invest in this more so than I would. But I think there's a lot that I can kind of, try and emulate from those big brands in terms of the digital marketing side of things.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there. In the digital world, and especially dominated by social media, I think having that brilliant marketing and social media presence, is imperative moving forward. And the last question I'll ask before we wrap up, Andrew, is: are there any exciting plans for the future with Active Apostle?
We're looking at our next collection and potentially using a new fabric. So we have been working with ECONYL. We're looking at another sustainable fabric as well. Can't say too much more at this stage. Hoping to, reveal that as we start, testing out some of the samples, but getting them made at the moment and hopefully get to test them soon. We hopefully should have a new collection, some new designs coming out soon. Or when I say soon, I mean in the whole sustainable fashion kind of industry, things take a lot longer than they do in. And when you say a bit, what you actually mean is a lot, because it can take some time. But we're working on a new collection and hoping to reveal some aspects of that soon. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think slow fashion wouldn't be slow fashion if it was fast. So
exactly.
That makes complete sense. That's spot on there. Andrew,
that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great to hear. Well, a big thank you for your time today. I think everyone would have really grasped and appreciated the science lesson you gave us in a few times, and you really give us some extra context as to why some of the activewear brands aren't embracing a more ethical and sustainable approach. So I think it's given everyone a bit of food for thought, and hopefully there's a bit more research. And just to clarify, ECONYL, am I pronouncing that correct? And that's spelled ECON.
ECONYL,
ECONYL, and that's spelled ECONYL. But I'll have that in the show notes if you want to do a bit more research on that. But once again, Andrew, a huge thank you for today, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Really appreciated your time.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.
All right, mate. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. It really does mean the world. If you like what you heard, please leave a nice review. And if you have any feedback or want to recommend a guest, and yes, that can include you love yourself, please email me at jordan@stridestore.com.au.